Oops, no ticket? You should head back home. Maybe next time. Courtney's tone dripped honey, but her eyes gleamed like a cat that's just trapped a sparrow. I stood at Denver International Airport, watching families wheel glittering luggage toward winter vacations, and felt the color drain from my face. $33,000. That's what I'd put down for this trip, and they had staged the whole thing to leave me behind. If you're watching this, tap subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from. My name is Margaret Ellison, though everyone calls me Maggie, and at 66 I believed I'd already sampled every flavor of family betrayal. I was mistaken. 2 months earlier, my son Daniel floated the idea that started it all. Mom, wouldn't it be amazing to do the holidays in Rome? Lily would flip for the Colosseum, and Noah's been studying the Renaissance. He'd lose his mind at the Vatican museums, and Courtney has always wanted to throw a coin in Trevi Fountain. He sounded casual, warm, familiar. I didn't even think to ask who was paying. I just did what I've always done, opened my checkbook, and made the magic happen. Courtney, my daughter-in-law with the curated smiles and Pinterest-ready life, volunteered to handle logistics. Leave everything to me, Maggie. I plan international travel at the boutique all the time, she said, flashing the photogenic grin that had charmed PTA boards and HOA committees for the last 16 years. I handed her my card, my trust, and my peace of mind in one neat bundle. Hotels, tours, flights for 5, first class, I told her. Let's make it special. Which is how I ended up in front of a gate at Den while Daniel stared holes into his boarding pass, and Courtney delivered a perfectly rehearsed line about a reservation mix-up. My grandchildren, Lily, 16, and Noah, 14, hovered at the edge of the scene. Lily pretended to scroll her phone. Noah's cheeks had the mortified crimson that boys get when grown-ups do cowardly things. There has to be a mistake, I said, even though my gut already knew better. These things happen with international flights, Courtney said, with a sympathetic shrug and a carry-on that probably cost a mortgage payment. We can't miss our connection to Fiumicino, you understand. That was the moment I understood exactly what game they were playing, and that it was time to change the rules. 3 months earlier, I had been on my back patio in Aurora, Colorado, mug of cinnamon coffee steaming up at the pale fall sky, when Daniel called. Mom, I've got a crazy idea. Hear me out. Daniel was born charming. As a kid, that charm earned him extra cookies and 30 more minutes before bed. At 42, it had matured into something smoother, polished enough to close insurance policies and, apparently, to sell his mother on a dream. The kids are growing up. Lily's looking at colleges in 2 years. Noah's taller than me. We should make real memories while it still counts. What would you think about a big family trip, somewhere unforgettable? After my husband Thomas died 5 Christmases ago, any invitation that still used the word family felt like a lit porch light on a dark road. Where were you thinking? I asked. Rome, he said, and I could hear the spark. Holidays in Rome. Imagine the lights on Via del Corso, cappuccinos every morning, the Vatican at dawn. Courtney found an incredible boutique hotel near Piazza Navona. I could see it, us strolling along the Tiber, laughing over cacio e pepe on a heated patio, the kids taking their first bite of gelato and declaring it life-changing. It was perfect. Too perfect, whispered the small practical voice that's kept me solvent for decades. I shushed it. It sounds wonderful, sweetheart. When? December 15th to the 23rd. I know it's pricey for 5, but we've been saving. That sentence should have been a clue. Daniel does fine in insurance. Fine. Not fantastic. Courtney works part-time at a boutique that sells sweaters more expensive than my first car. The kind of trip he described would swallow several months of their combined income. But when someone you love hands you a shared dream, you don't start with spreadsheets. You start with yes. How much are we talking? About 30 grand for everything. Flights, hotel, tours, nice dinners. It'll be the kind of Christmas the kids talk about for the rest of their lives. He slid into his professional persuasion voice, the one that gets strangers to sign on dotted lines. I didn't hesitate. Consider it my early gift, I said. That afternoon, Courtney and I coordinated over the phone. She bubbled with enthusiasm, rattling off restaurants and hidden gems. Oh, Maggie, it's going to be iconic. I'll handle all the bookings. I'm better with computers. Let me keep it seamless. Looking back from the airport, watching my son avoid my face and Courtney's mouth move like a puppet on a practice script, the thing that stung most was not the cruelty. It was how eagerly I had ignored the signs. Red flag 1 was secrecy. Every time I asked to see hotel details or flight numbers, Courtney redirected. Don't worry about it, she'd chirp. I've got everything under control. You just pack and get excited. Let me surprise you too. Red flag 2 came 2 weeks before departure. Can you text me a photo of your passport? She asked. Airlines need it for international manifests. I snapped a picture, proud of myself for getting the lighting right. A few days later, she called again. Small hiccup, the hotel overbooked. I switched us to another one. Better location, honestly. Then she rattled off a new confirmation number like a barista reciting syrups. Something in her tone sounded rehearsed. Red flag 3 nearly skittered by without me catching it at all. The Thursday before we were due to fly, I ran to Park Meadows Mall for travel odds and ends. As I walked past the food court, I spotted Courtney deep in conversation with her sister Renee. Nothing odd there, until I heard Renee say, I can't believe you're actually going through with this. It's cruel, even for you. Courtney laughed, a brittle, glassy sound I'd started to recognize as her real laugh. She'll survive. Someone needs to show her that money doesn't buy a place where she isn't wanted. I froze behind a planter like a teenager hiding from a dean, shopping bags cutting into my fingers. 30,000, Courtney. That's a lot to take from somebody, Renee hissed. Think of it as a boundaries lesson, Courtney said. She'll finally learn that throwing cash at every situation doesn't make her indispensable. I backed away on jittery feet and spent the next week marinating in denial. They couldn't possibly be planning what it sounded like they were planning. Not my own child, not the girl who called me mom in front of her friends when she wanted me to co-sign a lease, not the people I had covered for and covered with for years. But at the gate, when Courtney delivered her airy, "Go home, maybe next time," I knew exactly what I'd overheard. The older version of me, the one who equated love with problem-solving and problem-solving with payment, would have panicked. I would have cried, begged the agent, and if that failed, offered to buy a last-minute ticket at any price. But something inside me had been unclenching all week. The woman standing there in her down coat and sensible shoes wasn't the same one who had been bankrolling emergencies for 5 straight years. You know what, Courtney, I said levelly. These things do happen. I turned to Daniel. He studied the gate carpet as if it held sacred text. Have a wonderful time, sweetheart. I hope Rome is everything you dreamed. The Uber ride back to Aurora was 47 minutes, long enough to choose a response instead of a reaction. Reactions are hot, sloppy, and full of regret. Responses are cool, precise, and, when you've been underestimated, extremely satisfying. By the time I unlocked my front door, I had a plan. I made tea, sat at my kitchen island, opened my laptop. Courtney thought she'd out-tech a woman who has managed a household ledger since Reagan. Bless her heart. Thomas, my late husband, was an accountant with the soul of an archivist. 40 years beside him trained me to keep immaculate records. Every confirmation number Courtney had ever forwarded me, every FYI email, every PDF of tickets, all lived in tidy folders. I pulled them up: hotel bookings, airline confirmations, museum tours, Christmas Eve dinner, even tickets to a holiday concert at Teatro dell'Opera di Roma. All of it was in my name, all of it paid with my card, which meant all of it was in my power. First, the hotel, Residenza della Fontana, 2 connecting suites, 5 nights, $3,900 total. I dialed the number, and after 2 transfers and a melody of hold music, reached a courteous woman named Sophia. "Signora Ellison, certainly I can assist. You wish to modify your reservation?" "Actually, I need to cancel completely. Family emergency," I said evenly. "I understand there may be penalties." A pause as keys clicked. "You chose our flexible rate, which allows cancellation up to 24 hours before arrival. You are within the window. May I proceed?" "Yes, please." "Done. A full refund will be returned to your card within 3 to 5 business days. I am sorry for the circumstances and wish you a peaceful holiday." If she only knew. Next, flights. Business class Denver-Rome FCO, 5 passengers, $3,900 each. Airlines never make this easy. I surfed a labyrinth of automated voices and softly threatening disclaimers before a human materialized. There were cancellation fees, but even after penalties, the refund would be around $14,000. I took it. Then came the tours: a private guide for the Vatican, Skip the Line Colosseum, a Tiber night cruise, a day trip to Tuscany for wine tasting. One by one, I canceled. Confirmation emails pinged into my inbox. "Your cancellation is confirmed." Each ding felt like a little vertebrae sliding back into place. The toughest call: the Christmas dinner Daniel had circled in red, Roscioli, his bucket list meal. The maître d' was gracious when I explained there had been a change in plans. "Ci dispiace. We hope to welcome you another time." By 7 p.m., the dominoes were down. My card company showed credits in motion. Now for the pièce de résistance. I opened a fresh document and began to type. "Dear Daniel and Courtney, I hope your flight was comfortable. By now, you've probably reached the Residenza della Fontana and discovered that your reservation no longer exists. Since you clearly didn't want me on this family vacation, I assumed you also didn't want my money underwriting it. I have canceled every reservation I paid for: hotel, flights home, tours, dinners, even your opera tickets. Consider this a consequence, not a conversation. When you take $33,000 from someone while planning to humiliate them, it's wise to make sure they can't reverse your plans with a handful of phone calls. I may be 66, but I am not the gullible woman you take me for. The hotel has checked you out effective this morning. Your return flights have been voided. You are welcome to purchase new ones at current holiday rates." I looked. Roughly $4,000 per person last minute. "I hope you brought extra credit cards. Don't bother calling to beg. My phone will be off while I enjoy a lovely staycation and spend the refunded money on someone I've neglected for years. Me. Merry Christmas from snowy Colorado. Mom P.S. This note is tucked inside Courtney's makeup bag. By the time you find it, you'll have already discovered that your dream vacation has turned into an expensive lesson." I printed it on my good stationery and smiled. Earlier, while they were queuing at TSA, I'd walked back to the seating area, found Courtney's carry-on under Daniel's chair, unzipped the cosmetics pouch, and slid the letter in. 30 seconds. A lifetime of payoff. The beauty wasn't just the cancellations, it was the timing. They would hit the hotel desk first, assume a clerical error, waste hours arguing, burn phone batteries and patience. Only later, when Courtney went fishing for powder, would they learn who authored the error. I poured a glass of Cabernet and called my best friend Joan. She's the only person who ever said out loud what I didn't want to admit, that Courtney's sweetness is often a coat of varnish over something rough. "Maggie, are you calling me from Italy?" she chirped. "I'm calling from my kitchen," I said, unable to keep the satisfaction out of my voice. "What happened? Don't tell me they canceled." "Oh, the trip is on, for them." I told her everything, the overheard food court confession, the airport performance, the afternoon surgical cancellations. By the end, Joan was wiping tears of laughter. "Maggie Ellison, you magnificent woman. 16 years I have waited for you to put that girl in her place." "I should have done it sooner." "The important thing is you did it now. How do you feel?" I considered. "Free," I said. "For the first time in a very long time, I feel free." That night I slept better than I have since Thomas's last Christmas. At 2:47 a.m., Colorado time, 8:47 a.m. in Rome, my phone buzzed. I'd been half awake anyway, waiting like a kid for Santa. "Mom, call me immediately. There's a mistake at the hotel." 30 seconds later, they say the reservation was canceled. We're in the lobby with our luggage and 2 crying kids. I flipped my phone face down and went back to sleep. At dawn, the flood began. 7 messages in a row, each a step down from indignant to panicked. "Manager won't help. No rooms anywhere. Do you know what happened? This isn't funny. The kids are exhausted. Please call me back. I made pancakes instead, Thomas's favorite. Crispy edges, real maple syrup, strawberries on top." I ate slowly while my phone performed a furious little dance on the counter. By noon, Courtney called. I let it roll to voicemail. "Maggie," she said, voice tight as a piano wire. "Whatever game you think you're playing, it ends now. We're stranded in a foreign country with 2 children and nowhere to stay. Whatever problem you have with us can wait. Fix this." The entitlement took my breath away. Even unmasked, she still assumed I was the 24/7 concierge with an emotional tip jar. The next voicemail was from Lily. She sounded younger than 16. "Grandma, I don't get what's going on. Dad won't tell us anything and Mom's crying. We're in a cafe and everyone looks scared. Could you please call me? I miss you." That one nearly cracked me. Nearly. But I reminded myself, Lily and Noah did not land in this mess because of me. Their parents put them there. By evening, Daniel's messages turned desperate. They'd found a tiny pension in a sketchy area charging triple. "Mom, please. I know you're angry, but the kids don't deserve this. We're scared. Money's tight. I don't know what to do." I turned my phone off, wrapped gifts for my neighbor's little ones. Real gifts chosen with care, not hush money thrown at a problem to make it evaporate. In the morning, I turned the phone back on to 43 missed calls and 17 voicemails. You could map the psychological weather: confusion, panic, outrage, bargaining. The final message was pure venom from Courtney. "You vindictive old, I hope you're happy. We're stuck in Rome with no cash and no way home because you couldn't handle being left out of one little trip. This is why nobody wants you around. You're toxic, selfish, pathetic. Don't expect to see your grandchildren when we get back. Delete. Brew coffee. Add cream. Stir." Her threat landed. Of course it did. I spent that evening in my living room with the tree lights on, wondering if my delicious moment of justice had cost me Lily and Noah. Then my phone rang again. Unknown number. "Grandma?" Lily whispered. "It's me. I'm calling from the lobby phone. Mom took my cell. I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm really confused." Her voice was smaller than it should ever be. "Are you safe?" I asked. "Are you warm? Do you have food? We're in this tiny room with 2 beds and no heat. The bathroom smells. There's mold on the ceiling. Mom bought bread and cheese from a corner shop. Noah asked if we did something wrong. Dad just stares. The older Maggie would have opened her laptop and bought them a suite at the Hotel de la Ville. The Maggie on the call understood that rescuing them would teach the worst lesson, that tantrums and cruelty eventually work. "Sweetheart, this is not about you or Noah," I said gently. "It's about choices your parents made." "What choices?" "Dad keeps saying there was a computer error. Mom says you ruined everything." "Smart girl. Your parents used my money for a trip they never planned to share with me. They left me at the airport in Denver. On purpose." Silence. Then older. "On purpose?" "On purpose. After I paid for everyone's tickets, hotels, tours." "Oh my God." A beat. "That's why you canceled it." "I canceled because actions have consequences. I'm sorry you and Noah were caught in the middle. But your parents put you there. Mom said you were being spiteful, but you were supposed to come. That's what she told us until last minute." I could feel the click of teenage gears. She lied. She said you decided not to travel. "I was at the gate with my suitcase when your mother delivered her line." "I'm so sorry, Grandma." Tiny inhale. "Are we going to be stuck here?" "That depends on what your parents decide. They'll figure something out. I have to go. Mom's coming back from the desk and she looks furious." Whisper thin, "I love you. I'm sorry they were cruel." The line went dead. I sat in my quiet home and absorbed a truth I had dodged for years, that enabling bullies is a form of participation. Sometimes the only path to change passes through discomfort. The next 3 days fell strangely quiet. No frantic ring storms, no voice memos drenched in accusation. Lily managed to send a few stealth emails from the hotel computer. They'd moved to an even cheaper place. Courtney tried to charm the U.S. Embassy into something. The staff there don't allocate emergency funds for "my mother-in-law canceled my boutique itinerary." Daniel asked his boss for a salary advance. The boss had already heard that he'd left his mother at an airport after she paid for a luxury vacation. Generosity was not forthcoming. Renee refused to wire money. "You made your bed," she told them, and Lily got to watch her mother hear that sentence. I did something I hadn't done in half a decade, tended only to myself. I rearranged furniture, hung framed watercolors that had been leaning against the hallway since spring, called old friends I had sidelined while managing other people's urgencies, started a novel instead of another article on bond ladders. Wednesday evening, Joan arrived with champagne. "I brought reinforcements," she said, kicking off snow from her boots. We toasted my spine. She wanted updates. Lily emailed. Daniel spent the morning trying to wrangle standby seats home. Cheapest ones are still $3,000 each. Peak season. Joan sputtered bubbles. $15,000 to fly home in economy? I shouldn't be this happy, but I am this happy. "I hate that the kids are learning it this way," I said, "but Lily is watching, really watching. Noah will too." My phone lit with Daniel's name. I let it go to voicemail, then played it on speaker. "Mom, I know you're screening me. I deserve it. What we did was wrong. Courtney convinced me it was a harmless way to simplify the trip, but leaving you at the airport was cruel. Using your money to do it was theft." His voice was steady for once. "We'll find a way home without asking you for a dime. I just need you to know Lily and Noah knew nothing. When we get back, I'll face whatever consequences you think are appropriate. Please don't punish the kids for our failures." I stared at the phone. That was the Daniel I remembered. The boy who confessed before the teacher called. The man who still had a conscience under all that charm. Joan raised an eyebrow. Growth? Before I could answer, another call buzzed, an international number. Mrs. Ellison? The voice was crisp, soft Italian accent. This is Inspector Rossi with the Polizia di Stato. I'm calling regarding an incident involving your family. My stomach fell through the floor. Are they hurt? No, Signora. They are in custody for attempting to depart their hotel without paying the bill. The management contacted us. The amount is approximately $2,000. If payment is not made, the matter may escalate legally. Joan mimed, "Don't do it." She was right. Paying would reward the worst behavior. But then I thought of Lily and Noah spending Christmas Eve in a police station. Inspector, can you separate the minors? Is there a safe place for them until their parents resolve this? The consulate can assist, but it may take days. Days. A French bureaucratic maze would have been miserable. An Italian one wouldn't be kinder during the holidays. I closed my eyes and made a decision I disliked, but could live with. I will pay the basic charges, room, and any included meals, nothing more. Grazie, Signora. I will have the hotel contact you directly. They will be released within the hour. I hung up. Maggie, Joan said, disappointed. You just taught Courtney the blueprint. Endanger the kids and Grandma folds. She was right. The realization made me angrier than any voicemail. 30 minutes later, Daniel called, subdued. Mom, thank you. I know we don't deserve it. You don't. I paid for Lily and Noah, not for you and Courtney. I understand. My boss agreed to advance enough for economy flights. We'll be home on Christmas Eve. Good. I paused. When you land, we will have a very serious talk about boundaries and the difference between support and exploitation. I know, he said quietly. They flew home the next day. I spent Christmas Day alone, on purpose. Neighbors invited me for ham and pie, but I wanted the quiet. The woman who reflexively wrote checks was gone. The woman who canceled a $33,000 holiday with a few strategic calls was still deciding who she wanted to be next. The day after Christmas, Lily called from the driveway. Grandma, can I come over? Just me. Of course. Do you need a ride? Mom's driving me. She wants to talk to you first. I almost laughed. Even scorched, Courtney believed she could spin. Tell her she can drop you off. I'm not interested in conversation with her right now. An hour later, Courtney's SUV pulled up. Lily climbed out. Courtney lowered her window and shouted from the curb, Maggie, we need to talk. I opened the front door. We have nothing to discuss, I said. You nearly broke this family. You put us through hell, she yelled. Do you know what we endured? I put you through? I tilted my head. You stole my money and left me at an airport. We weren't stealing. We were giving you what you always say you want. More family time, without your needs. My needs? I barked out a laugh. Courtney, I'm 66, not 106. I walk fine. I feed myself. The only accommodation you needed to make was basic respect. Lily stood between us, cheeks coloring. Mom, just go. You're making it worse. Get back in the car, Lily. We're not finished. I stepped onto the porch. Lily is 16 and welcome in my home whenever she chooses. You should leave now. Courtney glowered for a long, delicious minute, engine idling. Then she peeled away, tires crunching ice. Inside, Lily crumpled on my couch and cried like the child she still partly is. They've been fighting nonstop. Dad keeps apologizing for letting you embarrass us, and Mom screams that she's never been so humiliated. I handed her tissues. I'm sorry you're caught between adults making childish choices. I'm not confused, she said, lifting her chin. Mom showed me bank statements. She wanted me to guilt you. It backfired. I saw everything. Her voice steadied. $47,000 last year alone. Mortgage payments, car notes, school fees, vacations, even groceries. I sank into the armchair. I knew I'd been generous. I hadn't assembled the ledger. Mom said it proves you owe us. Because we're family, Lily continued. To me, it proves you've been carrying us while they demand more. She took my hand. Noah and I never asked for any of it. We didn't know. We thought Dad just had a great job. I know, sweetheart. Mom's already scheming the next thing. She called Dad's boss to push for a raise so they can keep the lifestyle without her words, guilt money. Something cold settled in my chest. Courtney hadn't learned. She had simply changed angles. Lily, I said carefully, are you safe at home? Has this turned into anything that would make me call someone? She shook her head. No hitting, just bad noise. They want us to pick sides. Mom wants us angry at you for ruining Rome. Dad asks whether we think he's a bad father. That was the moment I chose the next right thing. The following morning, I called my attorney, Alan Pierce, and booked an afternoon appointment. I told him everything from food court whispers to police calls. He listened, made neat notes, and finally exhaled a soft whistle. Maggie, this meets the definition of elder financial abuse. Family doesn't exempt it. I want to change my will, I said, and I want boundaries with teeth. What changes? Education trusts for Lily and Noah, college, grad school, whatever they need, locked so their parents can't touch a cent. As for the rest, remove Daniel and Courtney as beneficiaries. The house, investments, everything besides the kids' trusts goes to charity. That's significant, Alan said. You're certain? I pictured the gate, the shrug, the words maybe next time. I pictured $47,000 in a single year and the phrase guilt money. I'm certain, and I want them to know now. No surprises later. Alan drafted, witnessed, and filed the new documents before New Year's. On New Year's Eve, I invited Daniel and Courtney to my living room for an important family conversation. Lily and Noah were at a friend's party, exactly as planned. Daniel sat at one end of the sofa scrolling his phone like it contained the exit. Courtney looked brittle, sleepless, daring me to blink first. I asked you over to talk about what happens next, I began. Rome clarified things. Courtney opened her mouth. I held up a hand. For 5 years, I've given you more than $200,000. Mortgage, cars, tuition, vacations, emergencies, Christmas. I never totaled it until last week. The number shocked even me. Daniel blanched. Mom, we never asked you to. You didn't have to. You just kept asking for more. You're twisting, Courtney started. Stop, I said softly. You told your sister, money doesn't buy a place for someone who isn't wanted. Message received. I handed Daniel an envelope Alan had prepared. This is formal notice, effective immediately. No more mortgage checks, car notes, or emergency funds. You're adults. Fund your own life. Courtney snatched the letter, scanned it, and her face moved through confusion to fury. You changed your will. Yes, Lily and Noah will have ironclad education funds you cannot access. Everything else goes to organizations that value my contribution without belittling me. The room detonated. Courtney hurled words. Daniel tried to mediate while pleading for reconsideration. I sat calm as a librarian. Finally, Courtney played her last, tired card. Fine. You'll never see the kids again. I smiled. Lily is 16. In 24 months, she makes her own decisions. Noah will follow. Do you really want to be the mother who cut their grandmother out over money? The fight leaked out of her like air from a balloon. Daniel rubbed his temples like he could massage the moment into a different shape. Mom, can we start over? Not the money. Us. I know I messed up. I folded my hands in my lap. We start over when actions change, not sentences. Courtney's eyes flashed. You act like you didn't want to be left behind. You judge, you hover. I packed. I stood at the gate. I didn't judge or hover. I showed up. I kept my tone even. And when you use my money to exclude me, I showed you I can also step back. Silence stretched so tight it hummed. Daniel finally nodded. A small surrender. Okay. I'm also done with cash-stuffed fixes, I continued. No more short-term loans that exist forever. No more surprise bills presented with guilt. If the furnace breaks, you call a repair company. If tuition comes due, you budget like adults. He swallowed. I hear you. You're going to be angry, I said. You're going to call me names in your head. That's fine. But if either of you weaponizes Lily and Noah to punish me, I'll get a lawyer involved. Do not test me on that. I would never, Daniel started. Courtney laughed without humor. You'll what? Sue us for grandparent visitation? If it comes to it, I said calmly, I'll explore every lawful route. I hope we never need to find out. They left without hugging me. I stood at the front window, watching their SUV taillights smear red across ice, and let the quiet hold me. People talk about peace like a field of wildflowers. Mine felt more like a closed door with a good lock. Over the next month, the thermostat in my life reset. My phone stopped buzzing like a slot machine. There were no, hey mom, quick question texts that meant, please pay for this. My checking account, so used to hemorrhaging, steadied. I put automatic transfers into the kids' education trusts. I said yes to lunch with neighbors I'd put off for years. I tried water aerobics at the rec center because my doctor keeps warning me about knees. On a gray Tuesday, Joan insisted we go to the Denver Art Museum. We need to feed your eyes something that isn't a bill or a betrayal, she said. We wandered through Western landscapes and contemporary installations. I stood in front of a painting of stormlight over plains and felt my rib cage make space again. Daniel called sporadically. He gave weather reports on his marriage without naming it. We're trying a budget, he'd say. Or, we're talking. It's loud, but it's talking. He mentioned marriage counseling once, then not again. When he needed to speak plainly, he used my voicemail like a confessional. Those messages I saved, not out of sentimentality, but because they were the first evidence that he was learning the grammar of accountability. With Courtney, there was nothing. No texts, no holiday photos, no clipped apologies over the basics of co-parenting. The silence between us felt less like a pause and more like a decision. Lily dropped by often. She learned the code to my garage. She'd stomp snow from her boots and head straight to the kettle like she'd been doing it all her life. We didn't talk about Rome every time. Sometimes we baked. Sometimes we sat on opposite ends of the couch, reading and sharing quiet like a blanket. One afternoon, she set her phone on the coffee table face down, like a truce flag. Mom says you turn the kids against her, she said flatly. She says you love power more than people. I breathed. Following through on boundaries isn't power for power's sake. It's dignity. I know, Lily said, but she's good at making selfish sound noble. Someday, sweetheart, you'll hear the difference between people who want to be right and people who want to do what's right. She nodded, eyes old. Noah asked if you'll still come to his art show. He's making a wire sculpture of a hawk. I wouldn't miss it. When I did show up at that school gym, folding chairs, coffee in styrofoam cups, bright construction paper labels beneath student work, Noah met me with the stiff, embarrassed grin boys wear when happiness ambushes them. Grandma, over here. He pointed at a metal-bent bird rising from a wooden block. The label read, Horizon. It's beautiful, I said. It's strong and it looks like movement." He shifted on his sneakers. I wanted it to look like it wasn't asking permission. I had to look away for a second so I wouldn't cry on a gym floor. "You nailed it." Courtney arrived late, all angles and sunglasses on a winter day. She scanned the room, saw me, and went flinty. I nodded. She nodded back, a tiny, hard acknowledgement that we had both chosen our stances and neither of us would move. On Saturdays, I began volunteering at the thrift shop that funds the women's shelter. They needed someone who could price donations and not take nonsense from hagglers. "You have the soul of a pricing gun," the manager told me cheerfully. "Also a good eye for quality." I found I loved it. The smell of old cedar and new possibility. The way a woman trying on a coat will square her shoulders when it fits. One morning, a lady about my age tried on a navy peacoat and frowned at the sleeves. "My arms are short," she said. "My daughter-in-law says it makes me look stubby." "Your daughter-in-law is wrong," I said. "Hem it to the wrist bone and tell her your arms are classic." She laughed, startled and pleased, and bought the coat. When I rang her up, I wrote the card carefully. "We fit ourselves first." In February, Daniel came by alone. He stood in my kitchen with his hands around a mug like it was keeping him from drifting. "We're separating," he said. The words landed like a thud on a rug. "I'm sorry," I said, "because that's what you say when a long thing breaks, even if parts of it were rotten. It's not because of Rome. It's because of everything Rome showed us." He rubbed his jaw. "We're not good together, Mom. We haven't been for a long time. I'm good at charming. She's good at needing. It's gasoline on a campfire." "Where are you staying?" "A friend's place for now. I'll get an apartment. We're trying to keep it civil for the kids." "How are they?" He smiled crookedly. "Lily's already Googled tenant rights and made a spreadsheet. Noah asked if we can build a bookshelf. I said yes." "Good," I said, and meant it. He looked at me for a long moment. "I'm ashamed," he said finally. "Not about the separation. About how I've let you subsidize my life. About letting Courtney treat you like inventory to be optimized. I knew better and did it anyway." "Shame is only useful if it becomes guardrails," I said. "Otherwise, it's just a weight you carry until it turns into resentment." He nodded. "I got a second job on weekends. It's not glamorous. It's honest. I don't want to be the guy who asks his mother for mortgage money. I want to be the guy who figures it out." "Then be him," I said. I didn't forgive him in a sweep. Forgiveness wasn't a light switch. It was a dimmer. I turned one notch every time his choices aligned with his words. Courtney sent an email through a lawyer asking about prior verbal assurances of inheritance. My attorney replied with 2 sentences that were both polite and titanium. There were no enforceable promises. The will currently in force reflects Ms. Ellison's wishes. After that, the legal tone quieted. I imagined Courtney hissing into a phone, and then I stopped imagining her at all. Spring pried winter's fingers off the trees, one bud at a time. The thrift shop rolled out a rack of flowered dresses. I bought packets of zinnias and marigolds and sat on the back steps, tearing them open and letting the seeds trickle into my palm like pepper. My garden had always been a conversation between soil and patience. This year, the talk felt different, less about making something presentable for when the family came over, more about growing what I like because I like it. At Easter, the kids spent the afternoon at my place. We dyed eggs, the kitchen table a battlefield of teacups full of vinegar water. Noah made a galaxy egg. Lily did an ombre that would have satisfied a French pastry chef. Daniel came by for dessert and ate more lemon bars than a man in a custody negotiation should. He stayed to help clean up. When Lily and Noah took leftovers and wandered to the living room, he dried plates with the concentration of a surgeon. "Mom," he said, How did you get so clear? I lost the fear that people would leave if I stopped paying for them to stay, I said. Turns out the right ones don't bill you for love. He set the dish towel down. I want to earn my way back into your time, not your checkbook. That's the only buy-in that works here. One evening in May, I came home from the shop to find a small box on my porch. No return address. Inside, on tissue paper, lay a chipped tube of lipstick and a note in Lily's spiky hand. Grandma, Mom was going to toss this. You wore it when you took me to the Nutcracker when I was 7. I remember you letting me try it in the bathroom, and we laughed and laughed because I looked like a clown. Keep it. Love, L. I turned the lipstick in my palm. It was a ridiculous fuchsia called Cherry Bomb. I put it on and nearly scared myself. Then I laughed like we had in that theater bathroom. Big, unladylike, from the stomach. Summer came to Colorado the way it always does, with afternoon storms that show up like uninvited cousins and leave puddles. The birds treat like spas. I started walking early mornings at the reservoir. The path is a loop. I like that about it. You start and end in the same place, but your steps in between make it different. At the shop, a regular named Evelyn asked me if I'd chair the annual fundraiser. You're organized and unflappable, she said. Also, when you look at people like that, they stop making excuses and bring you the silent auction items. I said yes. I printed checklists, color-coded spreadsheets, and flirted shamelessly with local businesses until we had everything from a weekend in Breckenridge to a gift basket of artisanal pickles. I wore a black dress and cherry bomb lipstick the night of the event and gave a speech that began, I used to believe the fastest way to fix a crisis was to write a check. It turns out the faster way, the better way, is to stand next to the person in the middle of it and say, I'm not leaving, but I'm also not doing this for you. We raised more than the previous 3 years combined. The shelter director hugged me, eyes wet. Afterward, I went home, kicked off my heels, and ate leftover cheese with my fingers at the kitchen counter because the only person I had to impress was the woman in the mirror. In July, Daniel signed a lease on a modest 2-bedroom near the kids' school. He and Noah did, in fact, build a bookshelf. It wobbled. They fixed it. Lily painted a wall sage green and announced that good light is a form of therapy. They established rituals, Taco Tuesdays, Friday night movies, Saturday morning pancakes that were pale imitations of Thomas's, and also perfect because of who flipped them. Courtney picked up more hours at the boutique and posted a series of fierce, curated photos about reinvention. She did not ask me for money. She did not send apologies. She did not, as far as I could tell, change. Some people don't. It helped to realize that wasn't my homework. One afternoon in August, I sat with Alan signing a stack of documents for a donor-advised fund I'd set up. This will let you give strategically over time, he explained, and the kids will see your philanthropy as part of their inheritance, values, not just valuables. Good, I said. I like that phrasing. Values, not valuables. When I left his office, I drove to the cemetery. It was hot enough to bake bread on a car hood. I stood at Thomas's grave and told him everything, the debit and the credit, the ledger of nights I didn't sleep and mornings I did, the ways Daniel had stepped up and the ways I had finally stopped stepping in. A breeze moved at the edges of the heat. I chose to read it as approval. In September, the thrift shop put out Halloween items, and I confiscated a plastic witch hat to wear behind the register. A little boy looked up at me solemnly and said, You're not a real witch. You're a helper person. I decided to ask for that on a tombstone someday. There were still hard days. A text from Courtney could curdle my stomach even if it was only logistics. Noah dentist Thursday? The anniversary of what I used to call Rome, and now called the airport, could catch me off guard and pull me back into that fluorescent moment. I'd go for a walk. I'd bake something absurdly buttery. I'd send Joan a picture of whatever I'd made, and she'd text back, "I am on your porch in 5. We built new reflexes. Lily turned 17. She blew out candles and said her wish out loud because superstition is just another kind of fear. I want a world where women don't have to apologize for drawing boundaries." We clapped, like she'd passed a bar exam. In October, my house felt suddenly too big. 3 bedrooms, 2 guest rooms, no longer hosting holidays that smothered me. I toured a smaller place closer to the shop, with sunlight like a benediction across the dining room. I tried on the idea like a coat. Did it pinch? Did it sag? Did it belong to some past version of me? It fit. I listed my house with an agent who talked about comps and staging and whispered, "We'll hide the treadmill." Before I packed, I invited Lily and Noah over to shop my bookshelves. Noah chose field guides and a 1970s set of Encyclopedia Britannica he thought was hilarious. "It's like Wikipedia you can stub your toe on," he said. Lily slid her hands along spines and picked out poetry and a cookbook with stains like a history of dinners. I put sticky notes on things for the kids after I'm gone, because the will covers money. The sticky notes cover love. On moving day, Daniel showed up with a rented truck and 2 friends from work. We carried boxes in a choreography of grunts and jokes. When we finished, we ordered pizza and ate it sitting on the floor. Daniel leaned back against the wall and exhaled. "You did it," he said. "New chapter." "I didn't know if I could," I admitted. "Neither did I," he said. "Turns out can follows must if you make it." We hung a photo of Thomas and me on the new hallway wall, not front and center like a shrine, but not hidden either. Part of the story, not the whole thing. Thanksgiving arrived. For the first time in years, I did not cook for a small army. I roasted a turkey breast for 4 of us and made exactly 3 sides on purpose. No buffet to audition my worthiness. After dinner, Lily read out loud from a gratitude list she'd written in her bullet journal. "I'm thankful for Grandma's quiet that has teeth," she said, shooting me a look that teased and honored all at once. "And for Dad learning how to make pancakes without setting off the smoke alarm." Noah raised his glass of sparkling cider. "To horizons," he said, and we touched rims. In December, 1 year after the gate, I drove myself to the airport, not to chase anyone, not to test any vows. I took the light rail and wheeled a modest suitcase to a boarding gate where my name was on a ticket and my plan belonged to me. Joan and I had decided on a long weekend in Santa Fe, art, green chili, a hotel with a fireplace that promised nothing except logs that actually burned. At the gate, I watched families wrangle children and teenagers pretend not to care, and couples fold into each other like origami. I felt a pang for the thing I'd imagined in Rome, and then I felt something else, larger, room. On the plane, a woman across the aisle asked if I was heading to see family. "Yes," I said, and then, because truth had been my practice this year, added mine. When we landed, my phone pinged. Lily had sent a photo from her first college tour, brick buildings, a tree with leaves the color of maple syrup. Her text read, "Your trusts mean I get to choose a school for fit, not just price. Thank you for choosing us in a way that didn't let anyone misuse you." I sat in the Santa Fe sun with my friend and a bowl of something that made my nose run in the best way, and let myself enjoy the simplest triumph. I had kept my word to myself. I had said no when no was the kindness. I had said yes when yes was the courage. I had accepted that some people love you best as long as you are bendable, and then I had stopped bending. If you listened all the way here, I hope you carry one clear thing back into your life. People who truly love you will learn the shape of your no and still find ways to say yes to you. Everyone else is just presenting you with invoices, and you do not have to pay. And because I am a woman of my time, I'll say the YouTube thing. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. Drop a comment telling me the city you're watching from, and share this with a friend who needs to hear that boundaries are not bars. They are bridges you build for yourself.